Bill Hader, after all these years on Saturday Night Live, it's all over. What made you want to leave us like that?
Well, I think it was because, it was more of my family, we were moving. So we wanted to live in California. My wife's a filmmaker. She was constantly having to travel to LA. We have a family. And so it was kind of it was more of a pragmatic decision of where we want to live. And then we did have the conversation for about 5 seconds whether I could do SNL while I lived in LA. Yeah, and then it was like, no, I don't think I could do that. So we talked about that over the kind of around the Christmas break, and then I told Lauren in February.
Okay. Now, if my numbers are right, you did 160 episodes of SNL. I guess it was 8 seasons. Do you remember what your first one was? Do you remember what your first great moment was? Who was hosting that first episode?
The first episode was Steve Carell.
Right.
And the very first sketch I was in was a sketch actually Colin Jost and I wrote. It was our first show, and we wrote a sketch that actually got on. It was the first sketch after the monologue, and it was called Jet Blues, and it was this JetBlue flight. The landing gear malfunctioned on it. I don't know if you remember this. And it was landing in Burbank Airport, and they just had to circle and let all the fuel run out. And then it was very harrowing to watch. And so we were watching that in the writer's room and thought, oh, JetBlue has those television sets, so are everyone in there, is all the passengers, were they watching this on the TVs in the plane? So we wrote a sketch about it with Steve Carell and Amy Poehler as this freaked out couple. And I played a guy on the news who is a psychologist. And I think my first line in any show was, well, there's 2 ways you can go about this, whether you want to know when and where. There's 2 different types of people. That was my first line. There's 2 different types of people, those who do know when and where they'll die, and those who don't know. And then Daryl Hammond said, well, which way should you do it? What do you suggest? And I say, oh, you don't want to know. You don't want to know. No, knowing makes it like 10 times worse, And I just totally butchered it. But that was this gist of what I said. And I got a laugh, I remember. And then I kind of walked over and went, oh, okay, I just made my first appearance on the show. And then immediately the next sketch, I played Al Pacino in a thing where it was Hurricane Katrina. We were building houses for Hurricane Katrina, and I was Al Pacino. And then I immediately went from that. Kanye West played. He was the first musical guest, and my last show, he was a musical guest. So I got bookended by Kanye West. And then I immediately did Update. I went on Update with Andy, where we did an impression off on Update. And that was my first show, and it was a whirlwind. Couldn't believe it.
That's an incredible first show. A lot of people don't get nearly that much on a first attempt.
Yeah, and it just went downhill from there. It was just an amazing first show, and then the rest of my season, it was like clawing to get in there in any way. But I think I took from that first show, I decided, well, I'll just learn from here. I had a really good first show, and I didn't have the kind of training that other people had, and I think I was a little self-conscious about that. And the writing, I didn't really know how to write comedy, really. So I just took it as, well, I'm just going to kind of shut up and learn and fail, and learn through failing,
As the newcomers have come along, and there's always new ones just about every year, at least in the featured status, is that the kind of advice you give them when they come on board?
Yeah, you're going to fail at the table read. My first season, it was really good to watch. You would see Seth Meyers read something at the table read that he had written, and it played in silence. And Tina Fey would do a sketch, and it would play to silence, and you would see her just kind of go, oh, okay. And they would just shrug it off like, it's all that I guess that didn't work. So that was kind of encouraging, and you would see them get their things cut. You know what I mean? I remember seeing Amy Poehler get a sketch cut, and I was like, "That's an Amy sketch. They're going to do that, right?" I mean, it's hilarious. But the dress audience wasn't into it, and it happens to everybody. So the best thing you could do is learn from it. The people I had seen that had a harder time at the show were the ones who never, you know, never learned from. They didn't pick up. Well, okay, that didn't go well. That happens to everybody, but you need to figure out, okay, why didn't that go well? And try to learn from it and apply it to the next time you do something. Because SNL has its own sensibility, like its own comic sensibility that you have to kind of, Steve Higgins, the producer, always says like this is what you find funny and this is what the show finds funny, and there's this Venn diagram of trying to do some crossover so you're happy, but it also works with the show. And I didn't really figure that out until the end of my first season, probably, when I did the Vinny Vedecci talk show with Julie Louis-Dreyfus. So I tried to get that character in and other things, and tried to figure out how can I do impressions the way I do impressions and the things, and it was never really working. It was a lot of silence at the table read, and then that sketch was kind of the one that made me go, aha! Oh, I figured out the Venn diagram,
Those table reads, I was going to ask you about those. Are those recorded? Are those ever going to be released like as extras on a DVD?
I don't think so. They're pretty fascinating. I mean, it is. I mean, it's also they're very long. It's 4 5 hours of reading material, and it's a lot of funny stuff ends up not in the show. It's the amount of comedy written per season is staggering. For what you see on the show. Every table read is at least 40 sketches. So, and then we bring 13 or something to dress, and then you cut that down sometimes to, I don't know, 7 or something.
After that many hours, you don't want to be sketch number 38.
Yeah, well, exactly. Or, yeah, you figure it out. Actually, towards the end of the table read is when people start to get excited because it's about to end. And they also, when you're figuring out, when they're doing the table read, what you really don't want to be is you don't want to be in the middle of each half. You do like 20, take a break, then another 20. When you're in the middle of those 20, that's the area where you're like, oh, that's not the best placement. But then that's another thing I learned. I would always be really freaked out about the placement of my sketches, and then as time went on, you're like, it doesn't really matter if it's funny, it's funny. You know what I mean? Like, some of the best sketches, Will Forte's, he did the sketch called Potato Chip, which I really liked. That made it on air. It was bonkers. But that one destroyed at the table read, and it was, in the middle. So I was like, it doesn't really matter. It's just funny.
I've got to tell you, I'm a longtime SNL fan. I'm old enough where it was starting when I was a little kid, and so I've watched it all these years. And my favorite all-time performer was Phil Hartman. Even before his tragic death, when it became sort of fashionable to say his name, I loved him when he was on the show and just thought he was incredible. And they called him the Glue, and I think of you as like the Glue too. I think you were right there with him.
Oh, that is a huge compliment, man. He's my favorite. He was the guy that I love. That was the cast that I grew up with. That was Phil Hartman and Dana Carvey and that group. That was my group. So he was the guy you would watch. I remember watching Chris Farley do the Matt Foley sketch for the first time, the band down by the river guy and the motivational speaker, and watching that and laughing at Chris Farley, but my dad, huge comedy fan, my dad was going, look at Phil Hartman. like he's so in character. He is what's making this so funny. You know what I mean? He was the dad in that sketch where he said, "Well, we've always supported our son's writing." You know, like, you know, he's always very calm and like completely committed to every moment, and it made it, for me, it made it funnier. You know, and so I think when I started at SNL, I remember thinking, well, I just want to try. That's my goal, is to, you know, each scene, you know, talking about what you say to new people when they come into the show, I always say all you could do is deliver, write something funny, and, you know, on Wednesday, write something that you find funny that you think will work on the show on Wednesday, and then do your best in whatever you're put into an actual show. And for me, it's like, you know, you'd be like a Starbucks customer. You're just like a normal person, but, you know, don't take those things lightly, you know? Like, go in and, you know, commit to it, and something funny might come out of it, you know? That's the nicest compliment I think that Lorne Michaels ever gave me, was he said, this was way later in my tenure, but he said, you're able to, you're able to find laughs where there aren't any laughs, you know? Like, you find laughs where I don't see laughs in it. So I always thought that was very, and I wasn't thinking about that either. So it was like, you know, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm hoping he meant that.
Well, that's what makes your kind of performance on there and his on there, I think, and others too. Dan Aykroyd was like this too, making those hosts and anchors and those standby, those kind of background characters funny without you know, calling attention to yourself so much.
Yeah, it's the ensemble thing, you know. I did take classes at Second City, LA, and that was one of the things that they taught you. You know, I taught you there is, you know, you want to make everyone look good, and if you make them look good, then you'll look good. And, you know, it's and I've, you know, the kind of comedy I liked was stuff, you know, like Monty Python and those early Mel Brooks movies and Woody Allen movies, where everyone is funny. You know what I mean? Those Woody Allen movies, he would be funny, but like, you know, I was just watching Bananas the other day, and I was like, just everybody in this, even the smallest roles in that movie, they're all funny. Everyone is funny, and they play it incredibly straight, but they're all given hilarious lines and things to do, and they're all kind of they're taken care of, you know. So I always like those kind of movies as opposed to tons of straight people watching them on funny person.
Well, you were known for your impressions on the show too. You just mentioned Al Pacino, and I remember when you did that Al Pacino that first time. And I remember saying to myself, "Wow, this guy's a keeper. This guy's going to have a long career at SNL." I was looking at a site called SNL Archives because they have good information. You would think Phil Hartman did more impressions than anybody ever in the history of the show, but it turns out to be Bill Hader did more impressions than anybody.
Wow, I did more impressions than Daryl?
Yes, you did. More different characters.
Well, you know what though? Those impression thing though, sometimes they just put you in a wig and I don't say anything and they're like, you did Tommy Lee Jones or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, you have to put someone else, put Bill in a wig and just have me stand there, you know. But that's very cool. I did not know that. That is news to me. That's crazy.
Well, let's talk about Emmys. This is your second nomination in this supporting comedy category. You were up last year, and this year you've submitted the season premiere, which was Seth MacFarlane, and you had, I think the big highlight moment for me on that episode, probably for you as well, was the puppetry sketch. Is that the reason why you thought that would be your best Emmy episode?
Well, here's what happens. At the end of every season, they walk up to you and they go, hey, what would you like to be your Emmy show? And they have a packet of all the rundowns of every show of that season. And I didn't really look at it. I just remember that first show, Lorne Michaels at the after party said, hey, I think you had a perfect show tonight. And I went, oh, cool, you know? And because I've never watched the puppet sketch. I've never seen it, like, or any of those. I kind of do it, and then I just move on to the next thing. And so I didn't really think about it, but I'd heard enough people who liked it And I go, oh, that was in the first show. Yeah, I'll do that one. You know, I kind of didn't, and then I didn't realize until later that Stefan isn't in that episode.
That's right.
And I think that's really the reason why the Emmy stuff happened. I think Stefan was a really big reason for that. Um, so I don't know, but I love that puppet scat. I love performing it, and that was written by John Solomon, Rob Klein, and Mike O'Brien, and they really took care of me on that one. That was such a pleasant surprise walking in on Wednesday, and they had a little puppet for me, not the one that I did in the sketch, this little puppet for me, and they said, okay, you're a guy who's engineer.
Well, when I went back last night to rewatch it, and I also pulled up a photo, I didn't remember at the time how much that puppet looked like John Goodman.
Does he look like John Goodman?
Take a look. Just go Google the photo if you don't want to watch the whole sketch.
Man, I'll have to watch that. He looks like John Goodman. Oh, that's funny.
Well, I didn't notice it at the time, but last night it was like, wow, that I didn't realize that, but that's kind of cool.
Oh, I should check that out.
I know he's supposed to look more like you, but with the hair and all. But it was kind of a John Goodman look.
I remember the thing in that sketch was I kissed Vanessa Bayer's puppet. That was improvised because the thing was I was supposed to be feeling up her puppet, but the puppets were so big and the camera couldn't zoom back far enough. So I can see like a little monitor, like what's being played. So I was trying to do that and it wasn't working. I was like, yeah. So I just ended up kissing her puppet just to try to end on some sort of a laugh.
One of the other great things about that episode, all through SNL history, when something happens in the world, a news event or something strange, we all go, I wonder how SNL is going to handle that this coming week. And you got to do Clint Eastwood with right after the chair thing at the convention.
Yeah, that was a funny one. I had met J.J. Abrams and we emailed each other a couple of times, and I was like, and when that chair thing happened, J.J. Abrams emailed me saying, "God loves you." Because he just knew it's like, oh man, you do Clint Eastwood, that is 100% going on the show. But that was a lot of fun. Seth Meyers wrote that with, I want to say Joe Kelly, maybe. Yeah. But Seth Meyers, I think, was the main writer. Maybe it was John Solomon, too. I can't remember, but I remember Seth being on the set when we shot that.
Well, speaking of Seth, he's going to be taking over the late night show, and Jimmy Fallon moving to the Tonight Show, both in New York. What is your take on that?
I'm excited. I'm excited for Seth. I think Seth will do such a great job in that role because he is naturally incredibly curious about people. You know what I mean? In a very genuine way. So I think he'll be great at interviewing, and also he's a great comedy writer. You know what I mean? And he can perform jokes, and he can deliver jokes. So he has the package.
With you and Seth and Jason and Fred all leaving basically at the same time, what's the show going to do?
Well, they've got great people there, and they're finding great people. I think the new folks we had in last year were great and proved great. Cecily and Adie and Tim Robinson, who I find hilarious, and Kate McKinnon. I think they're fantastic. And then the group before that, Taryn and Jay and Vanessa are doing great work. The thing that happens, and it happened to me too, which is like you come on the show, and it's like I had a great first show, but I wasn't a breakout success, And it takes a while, and the show kind of, they want you to hit in the right thing. You know what I mean? They want you to last there a long time. So Lauren will kind of purposely kind of hold back. He doesn't just let you go, just go and do whatever you want, because he wants to manage you at the top or manage you when you first arrive. So what you're doing on the show is well represented, and the audience can get to know you And that's what he would always say. He's like, yeah, you want the audience to get to know you and trust you, and then you can kind of do whatever you want, you know. And it's true. I mean, it didn't really happen for me, to be totally honest, until my last two seasons, you know, where I would go out on my mark and people would like wave from the audience and point and recognize me and stuff. It took a while where I saw other people, like when Amy would go out, or Andy or Kristen or people, you know, it would be like the place would get really excited, you know, because the audience like knew them, you know. And so everyone has their own trajectory there. And the great thing about that place is, at least now, the ensemble that's there is everyone's incredibly supportive, you know, and happy for you know what I mean? So it's never the pettiness or the kind of competition. I mean, the place, it's in the DNA of the place to be competitive, you know? But you don't have to really act crazy competitive, you know? So if I was in a, you know, Kenan Thompson, anytime he would do a sketch, I would try to go out and watch it from the floor. I just think he's like one of the best live performers ever, I think. So I totally got off track. But I think it's going to be, really solid. I think they have solid people. Bobby Moynihan last year brought it in a huge way with Drunk Uncle and all these other things. And so I think, you know, it's going to be fine. They always say this. When I showed up, it was when Tina Fey was leaving and Rachel and everybody, and so they're like, it's going to be, you know, bad. And then, you know, we're fine.
Well, what people don't realize is it's been happening since the beginning. I mean, Chevy Chase left after one season, and so it's been happening since the very beginning.
That's what someone said to me, like, SNL, Saturday Night Live's been around since 1975. Saturday Night Dead's been around since 1976, you know? It's like, people have been saying that forever, and the show is always, you know, proving it wrong. So
I don't know if you ever saw the sketch talking about you know, trying to fit into the new world and replace somebody potentially. Remember that sketch with Bill Murray? It wasn't a sketch. Like late in his second season, his first season, the show's second season, he comes on camera and just addresses the audience and says, "I don't think you like me. I don't think this is working out."
No, yeah. That was great, and I understand those feelings though, which is very funny, you know, because I remember seeing that sketch as a, you know, before, you know, I was on the show and thinking how great it was, and then you get on the show and you're like, oh gosh, yeah, I just would love to be able to do that, just address the audience and go, hi, I'm gonna introduce myself so you guys get to know me and relax when I get out there, and you know.
Yeah, it takes some guts to do that.
Totally. And it's hard, and over time people get to know you, and I mean, but that's the thing, like even now, it's not like, you know, I said this on Conan O'Brien's show, but I do, especially in New York, people just yell out SNL when they see me, you know. I don't know if they know my name. They're always like SNL or Stefan or whatever, you know. But you know, I love that. I think that's great. I think, you know, to the original question, I think the show is in really good hands. It's just, you know,
Well, speaking of the history of the show, I was looking back, and only 3 regular SNL performers have won like you are now as just a cast member over the course of the history. It wasn't in this supporting category like you have now. They for many years had this variety performance category. The other 3 are Chevy Chase, Gilda Radner, and Dana Carvey. So you'd be the 4th if you win this year.
Oh, cool.
That's a good group though to be in if you can get into that group of 3.
No, that's very cool. Yeah. I mean, I'm just shocked to be nominated again. I was very, you know, I just was incredibly flattered, you know. So I don't. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean that'd be very cool. But no, it was very interesting. It was a crazy day of being woken up at like 5:45 in the morning and saying, "Yeah, you got the nomination again," and I was like, "Again? Are you serious?" Like, are you kidding? Like, I didn't even.
Well, maybe you can keep getting nominations by coming back and guest hosting. Is that in your mindset of you'd like to guest host occasionally?
I would, but I I'm learning that anytime I say I kind of think anything's going to happen, something else happens. You know what I mean? So, like
Right.
even getting on SNL. I mean, I moved out to LA to be a filmmaker. I wasn't even acting, and then I took improv classes with a friend, and then I kind of started really enjoying it, and then immediately got on SNL. It was like going from kindergarten to Harvard, you know. And so ever since that's happened, I tend to not overthink stuff. I just kind of go, yeah, that would be cool, and see what happens.
Just have to go with the flow with this kind of a situation.
Yeah, go with the flow and see what they, you know, see what they think. But it was awesome having Kristen host last year. It was a blast.
Right. That's got to be a record for somebody leaving and then coming back to guest host.
Yeah, but it was totally warranted. I mean, she's great, and we were all still there. You know what I mean? It was like kind of the last time I think that group could have been on stage together. I
Hmm.
don't know if that went into the decision. I'm not saying that went into the decision of it, but I mean, Moore knew I was leaving. I can't speak for Fred or Jason if they were kind of talking to them about it at that time. I don't know, but and Seth, it's like I don't know what was going on behind the scenes, but um, it was nice having all of us up on stage again. You know.
Right after that was your final episode, which was the Ben Affleck episode. Just tell us about that week. I mean, you're leaving. You know this is your final opportunity. I mean, what's that week like? What's that night like?
The week, to be honest, was not like it was kind of like any other week, but the only difference was there was this kind of you know there was this kind of feeling of people just kept saying goodbye to me. I was getting cards from people, and but I didn't, for my own mindset and my own sanity. I just decided it was just another kind of show week. We had the Stefan video that we wanted to make, and then it was just scheduling that was really hard, um, and praying to God that Anderson Cooper would be available to do it and all this stuff, and then getting that done in time, and then it was funny. After the show ended on the car ride, back out, my wife said, you know, um, you're talking about it like any other show. I was like, was that funny? Did I do an okay job in that? Like, should have said this instead of this, or you know what I mean? I was the same kind of post-show anxieties were there. It wasn't like you know. So I don't know. I wasn't totally. It, I think you know what the thing was? I was trying not to say goodbye to a lot of people. I didn't like having to say goodbye to a lot of people. I was like, I can't do this. I can't do it. Like, it's just too much, like too emotional, to go around to all these people I've worked with for 8 years and say goodbye. I was like, I'm gonna be back. I'm gonna see you guys. I'm gonna be talking to you on the phone. Like, can we please not say goodbye? Because I won't be able to deal with it. It was too. That was, and I remember Amy Poehler was there, and Amy was like, yeah, you don't like forget saying goodbye to everybody. Like, just you got too. It's too hard. So yeah, I
You and
just
Fred both in the goodbyes at the end, at least the public goodbyes. You both seemed like you were a little bit of emotional there on the stage.
I got really emotional. I was totally fine all day and all week, to be honest. And then when we did the Stefan video, and I was backstage watching the video, and me and Steph were about to run out into the live audience, watching that video, I got like really emotional, and I was like, "Oh no, here it comes!" It was like a full season of emotions started coming out, and then so if you watch that when me and Seth run to the front and we're like, for weekend update, I'm I'm trying with all my being to hold it together. Yeah, it was pretty hard, and then to do that last sketch, and then we did that last sketch where we sang, with the band, and I got to play bass with all these musical heroes of mine, and we finished, and then it was this feeling of like, that's it, And Jenna, our stage manager, went, that's it, like that, and it was very like, how, and then when we said goodbye, me and Fred waved to everybody, said goodbye, and then I said, okay, Fred, when we step off this stage, we are ex-SNL cast members. You want to do it together? And he said, yep. And so we kind of put our arms around each other and stepped off together. And
Oh, that's cool.
After it had already cut out, so you didn't see that on TV, but we kind of looked at each other, like, you ready? Here we go. And then we just went, when we stepped, I was like, we're ex-SNL cast members now. I was like, how crazy is that? So it was like, it was emotional, but it was so emotional, and I was so exhausted that I just couldn't even really acknowledge it. One day I'm going to be driving, and I'm just going to pull over and have a full-on mental breakdown.
Could that be the first night that they're back when you're not there?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, when I know that they're back, and I'll be watching that show, and then I'll just curl up in the fetal position and bawl my eyes out.
Well, when you get a little distance from this show, I hope you'll go back one day and watch all these sketches you've done over the years, because you were one of the best they've ever had, and I think you will enjoy once you've got a little distance.
And I really appreciate that, man. That means a lot. Thank you very much.
Well, good luck with the Emmys in a few weeks, and hope you enjoy that experience again, and hope you have a great rest of your summer.
Thank you very much, man. Thank you.